Matt explodes. Nick's fatal plan is set in motion. On the coming explosive chapter of The Young and the Restless, Genoa City trembles as pressures that have been stewing for weeks eventually erupt into chaos. The occasion opens with a miscarrying shot of the Newman ranch at dawn, the sky painted in stripes of argentine and sanguine as if forerunning the storm to come. Outside, Nick Newman stands alone near the fireplace, gaping into the fading embers. His jaw is set, his eyes concave from insomniac nights spent replaying every move made by his grim adversary, Matt Clark. Nick has always flattered himself on guarding his family, but this time, the trouble feels different, further particular, more dangerous, and more final. Across city, Matt is pacing inside his dimly lit suite, fury radiating off him like heat from a furnace. He has just discovered that a pivotal deal he orchestrated behind the scenes has collapsed and he knows exactly who to condemn. Nick Newman, he hisses, slamming his fist against the marble countertop, covenanting that this treason won't go unanswered. The occasion wastes no time diving into the emotional battleground. At crimson lights, whispers curve among the regulars. The contest between Nick and Matt is no longer just business, it's war. Sharon Newman watches Nick from across the room as he meets with a discreet private investigator. Sharon senses the darkness clouding him. She approaches cautiously, her voice soft but critical, asking what he's planning. Nick skirmishes her off at first, averring he has everything under control, but Sharon knows that tone, the bone. That means he's formally made a decision he can't take back. Meanwhile, Matt's wrathfulness boils over when he storms into the services of Newman Enterprises demanding answers. He corners a pulsing superintendent, criminating them of oohing information that led to his downfall. The staff exchange anxious ganders. They know that crossing Matt is no way safe. As the pressure escalates, the narrative shifts to Nick's strategy. He's cooked what he calls a constraint plan, a legal and fiscal trap designed to expose Matt's shady dealings and bring him down formally and for all. But there's a catch: the plan hinges on a parlous move that could boomerang spectacularly. Nick intends to bait Matt into committing a fatal mistake, one that won't only ruin him financially but could also land him in captivity. The stakes couldn't be advanced. Nick confides in Victoria Newman, who listens hardly as he outlines every calculated step. Victoria admires his determination but warns him that playing with fire frequently leads to getting burned. Matt doesn't lose gracefully, she cautions however, he'll lash out, and not just at you, if you push him into a corner. Her warning proves predictive. Matt, now completely apprehensive that Nick is maneuvering against him, decides to strike first. He orchestrates a dramatic battle at society, icing a public setting where reports can be shattered with a single blameworthiness. The room falls silent as Matt calls Nick out, criminating him of sabotage and treason. Guests endure a timid conversation, spectacles suspended in the air as the two men square off like elephants. Nick remains outwardly calm, denying nothing yet revealing little. The pressure crackles so intensively it feels as though a single spark could enkindle the entire eatery. Matt's voice rises, echoing off the walls, as he vows that if Nick wants a war, he'll get one, and it'll be fatal. Behind the scenes, alliances shift. Sally Spectra overhears fractions of Matt's diatribe and latterly confronts Nick intimately. She worries that his preoccupation with taking Matt down is consuming him. Nick insists that everything he's doing is to cover those he loves. Sally challenges him at what cost? She asks, her eyes brimming with fear. The question lingers long after she leaves. Nick's plan involves indicting documents that will force Matt into a hopeless move. It's an adventure, one that could expose corruption but also spark retribution. Meanwhile, Matt's fury reaches a breaking point. In an isolated storehouse, he meets with an associate and lays out his counterattack. However, he's incorrect, if Nick thinks he can trap him. Matt plans to turn the tables by framing Nick for bigwig trading, using forged substantiation to paint him as the true villain. The plot thickens as observers realize that both men are stepping into innocently Argentine home. The line between idol and antagonist blurs. Genoa City becomes a chessboard, and every character is an implicit pawn. As night falls, Nick initiates the first phase of his plan. Anonymous tips are transferred, fiscal records still encouraged to civil investigators. He watches from his office window as storm shadows gather, mirroring the fermentation within. Victoria calls with critical news. Matt has filed an action criminating Nick of commercial spying. The battle has officially begun. Journalists swarm outside Newman Enterprises, empty for reproach. Nick brands himself for the rush, determined not to show weakness. The emotional core of the occasion lies in the cerebral dogfight between Nick and Matt. In a private showdown at the Newman ranch, Matt confronts Nick face to face. The dialogue crackles with intensity. Matt accuses Nick of undervaluing him. Nick counters that Matt undervalued the lengths he'd go to cover his family. The battle escalates until security intervenes, but the damage is done. Matt's parting words, "You just inked your own death leave," hang ominously in the air. In the final act, the plan spirals toward its climax. Investigators close in on Matt's accounts, uncovering disagreement that point to felonious exertion. At the same time, forged documents entwining Nick's face online, kindling a media delirium. Both men are entangled in a web of their own timber. Sharon pleads with Nick to step back before it's too late, but he refuses. He believes this is the only way to end Matt's reign of terror. The pressure builds to a heart-stopping top when Matt, cornered and hopeless, makes a reckless move that shocks everyone, storming into a press conference to intimately charge Nick of crimes that could destroy his heritage. The occasion ends on a thriller good of cleaner pieces legend. Police enchantresses wail in the distance as chaos erupts. Nick stands firm, refusing to back down, while Matt's rage burns brighter than ever. The camera lingers on their locked gazes, two men bound by contest, pride, and the unyielding desire to win at any cost. In Genoa City, nothing will ever be the same. Nick's fatal plan is in stir, but whether it'll destroy Matt, or himself, remains the creepy question that will carry observers breathlessly into the coming chapter of The Young and the Restless. The fallout from the explosive battle ripples through Genoa City like a seismic shockwave, and on the coming absorbing investiture of The Young and the Restless, the consequences of Nick's so-called fatal plan begin to unfold in ways no bone could have completely anticipated. The morning after Matt's dramatic press conference, blameworthiness feels eerily still. Captions dominate every news outlet. Newman reproach? Nick Newman accused of corporate crimes. Journalists crowd the gates of Newman Enterprises, crying questions that slice through the cold air. Outside, Nick Newman stands in the boardroom, facing a tense assembly of directors and family members. His countenance is emotional, but the strain shows in the miserliness of his voice. He insists the allegations are fabricated, a calculated counterpunch from a hopeless man. Yet indeed, as he speaks, mistrustfulness flickers across the many faces in the room. Across city, Matt Clark watches the chaos he has unleashed from the sequestration of his suite. He pours himself a drink with shaking hands, replaying the press conference in his mind. He'd gone too far, he knows that, but in his world, survival demands audacity. Possessed by investigators and betrayed by former abettors, Matt decided the only way out was to drag Nick down with him. Still, beneath the fury, there's a flicker of fear. Federal agents are closing in. The anonymous tips Nick transferred are bearing fruit, and processes are formally being prepared. Matt mutters that if he's going down, he won't go alone. At the Newman ranch, Victoria Newman and Sharon Newman argue about how to handle the raising extremity. Victoria believes they must go on the obnoxious, release substantiation, hold their own press conference, expose Matt's fiscal misconduct before he can do further damage. Sharon, still, sees the emotional risk this battle is taking on Nick. She fears his losing himself in the pursuit of Palm. This isn't just business presently, Sharon says still. It's preoccupation. Victoria bristles at the recrimination but cannot deny the verity in her words. Nick retreats to his office, where he meets with the private investigator who helped orchestrate the original phase of the plan. The investigator confirms that several of Matt's coastal accounts have been flagged for suspicious exertion. It's the advance Nick has been staying for. Yet there's a complication. One of the deals appears linked, falsely, to Newman Enterprises. The forged documents Matt planted are working. Nick feels a swell of wrathfulness and grim determination. He realizes that to clear his name, he must prove not only Matt's guilt but also the deliberate architecture attempt. Meanwhile, Matt convenes a secret meeting in a shadowy parking garage with a former associate who formerly handled his fiscal maneuverings. The associate is nervous, intimating that the authorities are asking questions. Matt pressures him to stick to the story, that Nick orchestrated the illegal trades. The associate hesitates, visibly equivocal. For the first time, cracks appear in Matt's armor. His conglomerate, erected on manipulation and intimidation, is worsening. He switches out, advising the associate that fidelity isn't voluntary. Back at Newman Enterprises, Nick gathers his family for a candid discussion. He admits that his plan was parlous, designed to provoke Matt into making a fatal mistake, but he insists it was necessary. Victoria demands to know every detail, while Sharon watches in silence, searching his face for the man she loves. Nick confesses that he anticipated retribution but undervalued the scale. He hadn't provisioned Matt going public so aggressively. The room falls into uneasy quiet as they grasp the graveness of the situation. As days pass, the pressure intensifies. Investigators raid one of Matt's services, seizing computers and documents. News cameras capture the dramatic scene, fueling enterprise. Matt explodes in a fit of rage when he learns about the raid. He smashes a glass against the wall, swearing that Nick will pay for demeaning him. In a nipping moment, Matt makes a call that hints at a darker contingency plan, commodity beyond legal maneuvering. His voice drops to a tail as he instructs the person on the other end to prepare the backup. Nick, ignorant of the brewing trouble, focuses on gathering substantiation to strike the forged claims. He works late into the night, poring over fiscal records, cross-referencing timestamps, erecting a timeline that exposes inconsistencies in Matt's narrative. The frustration weighs heavily on him, but he refuses to rest. Sharon visits him, bringing coffee and a plea for caution. She reminds him that revenge frequently blinds. Indeed, the stylish intentions. Nick softens compactly, admitting that he may have let wrathfulness drive him. But he insists that stopping Matt is worth the immolation. In a dramatic twist, a whistleblower emerges, one of Matt's former workers who can swear to the falsification of documents. The disclosure electrifies the Newman camp. Victoria sees it as the turning point they desperately need. Still, the whistleblower demands protection, stewing retribution. Nick agrees without vacillation, further entangling himself in the moral complications of his plan. He realizes that this battle is no longer just about clearing his name. It's about exposing a pattern of corruption that has hurt numerous others. Matt, growing decreasingly deranged, confronts the associate who did it before. When he senses treason, his temper explodes. The battle turns physical, and the associate storms out, covenanting to tell the verity. Alone, Matt grapples with the reality that his conglomerate is collapsing. Yet rather of surrendering, he doubles down, determined to carry one final move that could flip the entire narrative. The pressure culminates in a high-stakes hail where both Nick and Matt must present substantiation. The courtroom atmosphere is electric. Nick's legal platoon methodically dismantles Matt's allegations, pressing disagreement and introducing evidence from the whistleblower. Matt counters with dramatic faculty, criminating Nick of orchestrating a smear crusade. Spectators can smell the drift turning, but nothing is certain. As the hail adjourns, Matt corners Nick in a vacated hallway. His voice trembles with fury and despair. "You suppose you've won," he spits. Nick remains steady, telling Matt that the verity always shells ultimately. For a split second, Matt's facade cracks, revealing frustration and fear. But also his eyes harden, and he warns that this isn't over. The occasion's ending moments are a masterclass in suspension. Nick receives a call informing him that new substantiation has surfaced, substantiation that could definitively exculpate him and interlace Matt beyond mistrustfulness. Relief wetlands over him, but it's short-lived. Contemporaneously, Matt sets his backup plan in stir, leaving observers uncertain whether Nick's palm will be complete or devastatingly deficient. The camera lingers on the differing images of the two men, Nick standing in the gleam of stopgap, determined to cover his family and restore his name. Matt in the murk, consumed by rage yet unintentional to surrender. In Genoa City, alliances have shifted, secrets have surfaced, and the line between justice and revenge has blurred beyond recognition. The fatal plan has changed everything, but its ultimate cost remains unknown. As the screen fades to black, one question echoes louder than ever when pride and power collide: who truly survives the fallout? The coming chapter of The Young and the Restless opens not with crying or enchantresses but with silence. A suffocating, anticipant silence that robes Genoa City like the calm before a willy war. The legal hail may have suspended, but the war between Nick Newman and Matt Clark is far from over. In fact, it has evolved into commodity far more dangerous than either man originally intended. Nick stands alone in his office at Newman Enterprises, gaping at the skyline. The new substantiation his legal platoon uncovered, digital forensics proving that the indicting trades were executed from a garçon tied to Matt's shell pot, should feel like palm. Rather, it feels like escalation. Because if there's one thing Nick knows about Matt, it's that he no way loses still. And hopeless men do'n't just surrender, they crump. Across city, in a dimly lit extension suite, Matt's world is crumpling in real time. His attorney has just delivered ruinous news the whistleblower's evidence has been corroborated. Fiscal investigators are preparing formal charges. The walls are closing in. Matt's breathing grows uneven as rage and fear battle for control. He slams his phone against the wall, the crack echoing like a projectile. But also, calm. A slow, unsettling calm spreads across his face. They suppose they've possessed me, he mutters. They've no idea. Meanwhile, at the Newman ranch, Victoria Newman and Sharon Newman are deep in discussion. Victoria is all strategy, concentrated, sharp, formally preparing the coming commercial initiative to solidify Newman Enterprises' stability once Matt falls. Sharon, still, senses commodity darker unfolding. She has seen Vendetta's helical before. She has watched important men destroy themselves out of pride. He's not done, Sharon says still. Matt's the kind of man who burns the erecting down if he can't enjoy it. Victoria exhales. Also we make sure he's the only one outside. But Sharon's aspect drifts toward the window, apprehension settling deep in her casket. Back at his office, Nick receives evidence the quarter attorney will move forward with charges against Matt within 48 hours. It should be the final blow. Rather, Nick feels an unanticipated heaviness. He remembers the moment he chose to bait Matt, to blunder just enough information to provoke him into reckless action. It was calculated, strategic, fatal. He hadn't meant physically fatal, just professionally, just fairly. But wars have a way of shifting. Suddenly, Nick's phone buzzes with an untraceable number. He hesitates before answering. Matt's voice slides through the speaker like venom. You wanted a fatal move, Nick? You just got one. The line goes dead. Nick's palpitation harpoons. Within twinkles, chaos erupts. A data breach alert spreads through Newman Enterprises. Non-public customer records have been blurted online, manipulated to suggest fiscal misconduct at the loftiest situations. The stock price plummets within the hour. News anchors presume hectically. Social media ignites. Matt's backup plan wasn't violence. It was obliteration. Digital obliteration. Nick rushes into extremity mode, assembling cybersecurity experts and legal counsels. Victoria storms into the command center, fury blazing in her eyes. He's trying to tank us before he goes down, she says. However, we bleed out before the verity shells, if investors fear. Nick nods grimly. He wants collective destruction. Across the megacity, Matt watches the request drop in real time. For a transitory moment, triumph flickers in his expression. However, neither will Nick, if he can't survive this. That's the sense consuming him now. But his satisfaction doesn't last. A knock at his door freezes him. Civil agents. He opens the door with forced countenance, but the leave in their hands signals the ineluctable. They step outside, regular, unyielding. As agents search his suite, Matt's eyes drift to his phone. He contemplates running, fighting, denying. Rather, he straightens his jacket. This isn't over, he murmurs under his breath. Back at Newman Enterprises, the digital attack is traced. Matt undervalued Nick's medication. Anticipating retribution, Nick had still installed monitoring protocols weeks before. The breach is contained faster than anticipated. Judges go public attesting the manipulation. The stock begins stabilizing. Nick exhales for the first time in hours. But also Sharon calls. Her voice trembles. There was an accident. Nick's blood turns cold. On a trace just outside Genoa City,